And in this video, I'm going to go over an airman training program I designed to optimize their score on the hammer. So don't go anywhere. Some of the main muscles you will be using for the hammer are your hamstrings, calves, quads, glutes, abdominals, and also the joints you'll be using are ankles, knees, hips, and your shoulders. The planes of motion you'll be going through is your frontal, sagittal, and transverse plane. And some of the other movements outside of it you'll be doing is rotational, acceleration, and braking. Everybody has limitations. It doesn't matter on how much of a trained athlete you are or how much of a sedentary individual you've become. Some limitations are great and some are small, but to some degree, everybody has them. So use a movement screen to catch imbalances early. The FMS or functional movement screen is a useful tool and is well known and established for identifying asymmetries. Catching these potential movement disproportions at the start of an airman's training plan can decrease the likelihood of injury later on in their career. Add in accessory work to complement the main workout. Accessory work can aid in strengthening a network of tissues to improve the capacity of forces placed on the body. Microbrands are a really great tool to help work these problem areas. And range is not often trained. Most individuals just focus on their main lifts or their arms and never consider other areas that need more attention. Mobility usually falls to the wayside. We fall into this trap of just hitting areas we like and working on steady state cardio. Never think about the joints involved or how to take care of them. Mobility is the new term to replace flexibility. Mobility helps aid joints move actively through a range of motion, whereas flexibility commonly refers to a passive lengthening of tissues through a static range of motion. One way we're going to develop a well-rounded airman is increase their strength and power. Getting an airman stronger will decrease the likelihood of injury. According to OSHA, 33% of all injuries happen on the job are from skeletal muscle cases. So I'll put the website in a link below if you want to find out more. Most of these injuries can be prevented through an encompassing training program and decrease in sedentary behavior. Accessory or prehab. These smaller muscles have a hard time in maintaining their function and they're not taken care of regularly. The hips and glutes and knees, shoulders for instance, usually have problems and dysfunction if they're not properly maintained. Performing corrective exercises will help potential problem areas from catastrophic breakdown and reduce injury risk. Help end ranges and mobility of joints. The mobility and end ranges may aid in preventative measures of the airmen for reducing ailments during their time in service. So the movements and drills from the previous presentation, I went over a functional warm-up and drills to improve your hammer score. Combining these with the weight room training, the development of a well-rounded airman for more resilient to injury can be achieved. So training structure will primarily develop an airman to become more resilient to injury and by making them stronger and faster. Secondary factors the airman will exhibit is increased productivity, decreased illness, boosting endorphins, and lower depressive symptoms, as well as lowered anxiety. For this training plan, I'm making it a 4-day upper-lower split. I'm putting in accessory and mobility work as well. Movement, energy systems you can do before or after training. So I'm making this a 3-week microcycle that can be modified or adjusted as needed. Without the movement screen results, I can only hypothesize what a potential accessory or mobility work would be for someone to individualize their programming. On a training plan, I'm going to incorporate a general options to use. So the movement drills can come on before or after training to give a better adjustment to real-world function. The reason behind this is they will never be in a situation where only one type of movement is performed. So why do we want to structure a physical training that way? A daily undulating periodization training model would be the best for military members because of the diversity in working environments. I put a quality of movements for each week that you can do. You can go and adjust these accordingly for what you have on hand. Maybe a machine or something else is unavailable. You could go choose, a different exercise if you want. But on how I end up having it set, this is an agonist-antagonist movement. So you're not only working one piece, let's say the chest, but directly afterward you're working the back as well and doing an accessory movement to complement that. So the M is made for middle. So if you end up saying mid, right, that's just a normal chest press. If it's an H, it's either a high press or a high row, and if it's an L, that's a low press or a low row. For week 2, I adjusted some things slightly, so you can see them here and kind of go and adjust for yourself on your training plan to meet your needs. Week 3, I adjusted it slightly again, so you can go and modify it for yourself and put some accessory work in that meets your needs. Some variables to think about are multi-joint before single-joint lifts. You can always think of these as compound lifts or big movements. These include your Olympic lifts, your deadlifts, your squat, bench, overhead press, your pull-ups, pull-downs, or lunges. You work multiple muscles at one time before isolating individual groups. Tempo and variance. Concentric, eccentric, isometric contractions work muscle fibers differently. Adjusting the tempo will help your body with more training adaptations than just one set pace that never changes. Try rapid concentrics, longer isometrics, and slower eccentric phases for better training progressions. Bilateral and unilateral, or double-sided versus single-sided. A phenomenon called bilateral deficit is where one side of your body is stronger than the other. It shows we have unintentional imbalances where injuries are likely to occur. This would hold true for us favoring one side of our body, being left or right-handed. Over time, we favor one side and neglect the other. A muscular imbalance is sure to show itself at some point. Corrective exercises are sometimes needed as preventative measures, and if imbalances become too pronounced, physical therapy is mandated for recovery. Just a couple more variables. Rest periods between sets. Your training intensity and your goals will greatly depend on the rest you take. If you're looking for higher intensity training, then a shorter time between sets is warranted from a harder effort. Or maximal strength efforts will need a longer rest time between sets to fully recover. And if you want a consistently elevated heart rate throughout your workout, then a consistent rest to work ratio and lower intensity is suggested. RPE, or rate of perceived exertion. A self-check on your perceived exertion or effort for the exercise or movement that you're doing. For example, if you have a heavier weight on the bar, then you'll use a higher RPE because you're placing more effort and force into moving the bar. If you're doing jumping jacks, you can crank out 20 no problem, and it will classify the RPE at a lower scale. So the HAMR training program I made is a 1-week, 4-day training program. It requires movement training or an ab training, as well as a warm-up weight room prep. So there's a link in the description below for a spreadsheet just for you. You can adjust the weights, the tempo, the rest, and the RPE in a note or on the sheet, individualize it as you need. If you have any questions on any of the material in my HAMR series up to this point, then please leave them in the description below. I will put them in the last video for the good of the group. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.